Fridays, I'm Al McCauley, and today I want to talk about a type of saint. In fact, I would say they're like the cream of the crop. They're right up there. If you had to put a hierarchy of who's in heaven and grouping them after Mary, who is the chief, the head of all saints, you'd probably have the apostles, right? And you'd include Paul in that, and Mary Magdalene I would include in that as well. Those are probably right up there after Mary. And then there's another group of people that I would put really close to them, under them, but close, and they are called collectively doctors of the church. Now, if you've watched other episodes of Fish on Fridays, I tend to remark a lot about my two favorite saints. One is St. Teresa of Lisieux. You see her icon down there, and I wear her necklace or pendant on my body every day to remind me of her lessons. And then up here you see St. Augustine. St. Augustine of Hippo is again, one of my favorites. Those are like 1A and 1B in terms of my favorite saints of all time. And they have something in common besides being saints. They are both doctors of the church. Now, I want to talk about that. Maybe if you've seen the liturgical calendar, or if you have a prayers of the day, the readings of the day, it'll list who the saint is, and it'll tell you what they are, if they were a priest, if they were a martyr, if they were religious. And oftentimes you'll see the word doctor or doctor of the church. And it may be tempting to think that that means they are surgeons or physicians, and it's not at all what it means. It's probably closest to our time related to someone who has a PhD. Someone who has a PhD in theology, you wouldn't call and ask them to do surgery on you. The word doctor comes from the Latin word docere, which means to teach. And so that's what doctors of the church do. They teach. And these are considered the preeminent teachers of the faith. To give you an idea of how rare it is to be a doctor of the church, we have literally thousands of saints in our church's history. Only 36 of them, 36 have been recognized as doctors of the church. And it's important to say recognized. The church doesn't declare them as such. The church recognizes their impact. So it's something that they've always been graced with, and the church just gets to the point where they recognize the impact of their teaching. So what makes a doctor of the church? A doctor of the church, there's three things. Number one, you have to be a saint, a canonized saint. So, you could make a case for a lot of people who are really smart, who've really helped the church, but if they're not canonized, that's step number one. Number two, they have to have had a teaching. Again, docere means to teach. They have to have a teaching that is a lot of things. It's universally felt, so it applies to the church. It applies to everybody. It has to be something that's lasting in its impact. So it's something that we've thought about and ruminated about and believed and codified and made part of the church's, part of its whole experience over time. And it's got to be, this teaching has to be something that's accessible and understandable so that people can take it to heart. So that's number two. So first, you're a saint. Second, you have to have this universal impact with your teaching. There's something that's very, very applicable to all. And then the third thing is, to be a doctor, you have to be recognized either by a pope or a church council. And that's it, basically. But it's, I'm telling you, the bar is set up high. When you talk about someone like Thomas Aquinas and Albert the Great, Gregory the Great, these are some really deep thinkers. Teresa of Avila, Catherine of Siena, movers and shakers. And like I said, my two favorites, Augustine and Teresa of Lisieux. Only 36 men and women, as of this taping, have been recognized as doctors of the church. And of those 36, only 4 have been women. But that list is growing. That started in 1970 with Teresa of Avila and Catherine of Siena. They were recognized in 1970 at the same time. So the list may expand in terms of how we view doctors. But it's important to understand, ultimately, how this relates to us. Doctors of the church have what we call charisms. A charism is a spiritual gift. And these spiritual gifts, these graces from God, has allowed them to write and to teach something about the gospel that helps our lives, that impacts us, and helps us to understand the kingdom of God better. And so we're called to do that. We may not be called to be saints, like they are capital S saints and doctors of the church, but we all have charisms. And those spiritual gifts are never meant to be kept to ourselves. They're always about the building up of the community. And so I would ask you to think about doctors of the church in this regard. Think about them in terms of they have lessons, they have charisms, they have spiritual gifts, and so do you, and so do I. And to think about and pray about, what are my spiritual gifts? And how can I best use them for others, to build up God's kingdom? That's really what we're called to do. We're all called to share our gifts, our spiritual gifts with each other. And that's ultimately the best lesson that the doctors give us, the doctors of the church. Great group of people to get to know and to read about and to learn from. Hope this has been helpful. Thank you for watching. We love that you tune in every Friday for Fish on Fridays. We hope that you will subscribe to our YouTube channel. Maybe follow us on Facebook. You can leave comments for us in either one of those locations. But either way, thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, be good to each other and God bless.